Well, believe it or not, back to school season is here, and as parents are getting ready to get their kids back into the classroom and their old routines, it can actually be a little bit difficult. So this morning, Dr. Eric French is joining us with some tips that might help. So can you just first kind of walk us through like what to watch for as kids are getting ready to go back to school, that maybe anxiety is creeping in or anything like that?
Yeah, great question. I think, there tends to be a lot of different ways that kids will show anxiety, right? So I think just looking for any deviation from your child's baseline. If you see them being more irritable or more withdrawn, these are usually signs that there's something going on.
Okay, so I can imagine that sometimes it might be a little hard to kind of draw that out of them, to get them to talk about it and kind of work on solutions. So what's your advice there?
It's hard to get them to even say, if they were at school today.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. Yes. The one word answer.
Yeah,
yes.
I think, trying not to be direct and certainly avoiding any kind of a lecturing type of a situation is important. Beating around the bush and just sort of opening the floor and holding a space for a child to talk is usually best.
What are some of your examples of kind of like opening lines to kind of get into that conversation?
Yeah, I think some of this is really important to consider in terms of whether or not the child is really standoffish or highly afraid, but I think just letting them know that you're available to talk, and if that's not right now, that's okay, circle back later on. I think the most important thing is to show up emotionally for our children and let them know that this is a safe space to talk about whatever it is that they're concerned about.
I am curious what you're seeing, because we have a lot talked about, the behavioral and social skills that were lost kind of through the pandemic, and that's still definitely showing up in the classroom. And how is that impacting kids going back to school, in-person learning, because I think everybody's still adjusting?
Yeah, people are definitely still adjusting, and I think that there's going to be more and more time with this that we're going to see things getting back to some semblance of normalcy, but it is awkward and uncomfortable, and some kids are still socially not quite comfortable doing what they used to do.
Yeah.
It's not coming as easily.
Yeah, they're used to the online. Sometimes being on computer is still a comfortable thing for them. I've heard from a couple of other folks too that sometimes just like a practice conversation can help, so that kids don't have to like come up with lines on the spot or think a situation through. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's great. Depending upon the age of the child too, sometimes pulling up movies or YouTube videos of certain characters and watching how they handle stress and anxiety too can be useful.
Yeah. What about age-appropriate approaches to this for like an elementary school kid versus a high school kid? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I think depending upon the age of the child, if it's somebody really young, you definitely want to avoid saying, you're going to be fine, everything's fine, just go play, you'll be fine. It invalidates, and the fact is they are worried. So I think maybe the younger the child, doing more of an explanation of what recess looks like or what going to class looks like. The older the child gets, you can have a little bit more of a direct conversation. Adolescents and teenagers can be really challenging.
Yeah.
They can get very emotional about things. So just maintaining your calm and giving some grace there and allowing it to open itself up.
We're almost out of time, but just places to go for resources to help families out.
Yeah, definitely Googling youth services. I think that this is very important. Psychology Today has a great therapist finder function as well.
Yeah.
There's a couple of great places in the community, Resolute Youth Services, Elise Behavioral Health. Places like this would be great.
I've heard about Resolute Youth Services a lot too. It comes up a lot in conversation. Thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
This is so helpful for families as we're getting ready, which I can't believe is like a week or two away for some school districts. So this is very timely. Thanks so much.
Thank you.